Welcome back to the Hit.OR.DIE podcast, episode 8, with your hosts, Jake Saldati and Chad Rothford. We got a big-time guest for us today, for you guys. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to have this guy on. Ron Scott out of Fresno City College. Anybody and everybody that's ever played for this guy had the time of their life at Fresno City College, and great to be able to have him on our podcast and talk baseball. Coach, it's great having you.
It's great. I see episode 8. That's kind of where I hit in the order late in my career. I batted 8th. So, yeah, it's great. I'm really happy that you think enough of myself and Fresno City College baseball to have me on your show.
It's a no-brainer for us. Thank you for taking time out of your day. I know what's life like right now? You're not teaching anymore, right?
I'm not teaching. I'm just coaching baseball. Baseball is like a full-time job. You know, you're recruiting, organizing practices. Fortunately, I have a really great staff that recruits hard like myself. So it's not just I'm doing a one person job, but the difference in the morning is I get up and have coffee and hang out, and I can golf in the morning if I want to. But it's I taught 43 years in education, so I think I did my time.
Yeah, I think so. You're a legend to all of us in this baseball town. It's a big time baseball town, and when everybody talks about baseball, Fresno City College is always mentioned in any conversation. But before we get into your Fresno City stuff, you were from up north, Kenyatta, went to Kenyatta Junior College, then you went to University of Miami. You got to play in the College World Series in the final against USC. What was that experience like? And even how were you recruited from out here in Miami?
Well, I was really lucky. I played at Kenyatta College, and Ron Fraser was the Miami coach, and this is how I heard it happen. But he contacted a scout from the San Francisco Giants who he knew really well and said, I need a catcher, and I'm looking for a catcher. He had never recruited anybody from California yet, so I'd like to bring some California recruits in, and I need a catcher. And the scout said there was 2 good catchers in the state. There's a guy from Long Beach, I don't know his name, and then myself, but he thought the Long Beach guy had much more pro possibilities at that time. So Frazier offered me back then a full scholarship, sight unseen, basically, just off the word of the scout and my junior college coach. The brochure was unbelievable. So I said, yeah, I'll go. I mean, this isn't important, but the drinking age was 18 back there. And there was 3 lakes on the campus and pubs, and it's Miami. And I just said, wow, that's unbelievable. And so when I landed there, I was really, really excited. And as it turned out, there's he had kind of lied to me there. He'd recruited a couple other catchers, but I ended up being their guy. And we went to the College World Series for the first time Miami had ever been there. We were runner-up, and it's kind of like batting 8th on this Hit.OR.DIE podcast. But I read a thing. I was flying recently, and I read a thing on Jim Morris, the Miami baseball coach, and he's not there anymore. But I think he just got out. But he had said that they had won 3 national championships since the time we came in second. And he uses our runner-up trophy as a doorstop in his office to remind the players that second's not good enough. But at that time in my life, runner-up to USC was great. And, it was an honor to get there. And being from California, I knew how good USC was. And we lost 7-3 in the final game. I drove a run in early, but I also struck out with the bases loaded kind of late, and which I'll never forget. Obviously, I mention it right now. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. I had a great experience there at Miami.
And so after playing at Miami in the College World Series, and you get to spend 1975 with the Portland Mavericks, being Russell, and there's a Netflix documentary out there.
Kurt Russell was there. He was there too.
As a player, right? And can you just talk about a little bit of your time there and what that was like?
Yeah, first I was kind of bitter because when I made the Olympic team, it's not the Olympic, it was the World Games we played in and at Miami. And back then things are so much different. But so there was 2 catchers on the world. We got a gold medal, which was the first gold medal the United States ever received. The second one was when Lasorda coached with pro players, and they honored our team in Atlanta 20 years after that. But so when you went to the Olympics, you had to get drug tested and you had to get everything complete physical. And I've never been a guy that does drugs, but during the complete physical, I'm legally blind in my right eye, so I can't see out of my right eye. And no one knew that. But so when that happened with the scouts, I went from being one of the top catchers in the country I played for Fairbanks, Alaska. I made the World Games, to a guy that was blind, in their eyes. So when I got back to Miami, Frazier said, "Hey, what's the deal? Everyone's calling me saying that you're blind in your right eye." And I go, "Well, I'm legally blind. I'm like 20-500, which, you can read the E on the chart for the driver's license, only because I know it's an E. If they ever changed it, I wouldn't have passed the E. But so once I got back now, I became a non-prospect, but I still felt that I did good enough to get drafted. I didn't get drafted, and drove back to Redwood City in California. And then I got a call, a couple guys on the Mavericks saying, "Man, you got to come play. It's a blast. It's crazy." And so whatever, I know the documentary, you're going to get to it, but the documentary on the Mavericks had to be tame compared to what really happened in there. It was just a crazy group of guys. Some of them were former pro players that were out of the game, but every one of us had edge. And I'm not sure we were the most coachable group of guys at that point in our life, because we knew baseball was probably almost over. But for me, wrapping up my playing career, that was probably as fun as it gets, because there wasn't a lot of pressure on us. We beat almost all the A-League teams, all the kids that were the prospects, and we lost the league championship. We drew, I think you said 4,000 to 5,000 people a game. Bing Russell was our owner, and he was the sheriff on Bonanza. His son was Kurt Russell. So Kurt was always hanging around. I remember we signed Jim Bouton. It was a big deal, and Bouton was very aloof. I know he just passed. So I don't want to speak ill of him, but he, which a lot of people do want to speak ill of him, but he showed up 30 minutes late in the game for the game, packed crowd, showed up in a limo. They drove on the field, and he got out, standing ovation. Then when the game was over, the limo picked him up, and he never talked to us, never hung out with us. No one could really like him. And I remember Donnie Reynolds, who played for Fairbanks, but he played for the Walla Walla. He played in the big leagues with the Padres, but he was a good friend of mine. And I remember I went out. I'm not happy about this story, but Bouton was getting kind of crushed in the game, and the coach gave me a signal saying, "Go out and talk to him so our bullpen can get ready." And I went out there, and he looked at me and goes, "What could you possibly tell me? Why are you out here?" And I said, "I just wanted to let you know that you're getting ripped, and I'm scared for some of our players out there." So anyway, I went back and told Donnie Reynolds the fastball was coming, unless he shakes it. And Donnie hit it like 420 feet out of the ballpark. And I remember the umpire saying, "Don't ever do that again. It's not ethical." But that was the kind of team we were on. And Bouton got done playing. He just kind of walked out on us, never played anymore. But that was one thing I remember of the Mavericks. But I just remember that there's a lot of hotels up there that would never have our team back. So we had a lot of fun, and we won.
I think it's for, you talk about the attendance, just in 1975 to have 4,000 people average. That's average a night for, or independent ball. That's just
and our coach was Frank Peters, and he got kicked out of a game a lot. And I remember we got kicked out one night. He picked up first base, carried it out of the ballpark. And by the way, there was no other base. So it took us like 30, 40 minutes to find another base for the game, and all the fans were going crazy. But so he got written up in Baseball America or something about he was the stolen base king of the year. But anyway, that was a fun time in my life. Not the proudest, but the fun.
And so after that, did you take a little break from baseball, or did you come back and just get right into coaching? Was that when the career started?
Came back, coached 1 year at Kenyatta Junior College, and was trying to get a high school job, and there weren't very many of them. And anywhere in California back then, it was really, really tough. And I lived in the Bay Area, and the price of homes were awful. It was you had to have 20% down. There was a really lousy house in Redwood City that was 2-bedroom, 1-bath for $95,000. They wanted, 20% of that. I don't know if you guys are math guys, but that's like $18,000 cash. And so I went for jobs, and I finished number 2 at Central High, and I finished number 2 at Chowchilla, and number 2 at a high school in Riverside, and just couldn't finish first. And I think the first night of football practice, Chowchilla called me. I coached at Kenyatta before that, got my master's degree. All of a sudden, I was at Chowchilla High School. I'd never really heard of it before. And other than 3 kids from my high school had kidnapped the bus. So it was kind of crazy when I interviewed there, because I said, well, I have to be honest with you. I'm from Woodside High School, and 3 of the guys that kidnapped the bus they were older than me. But so anyway, I taught 4 years at Woodside. At Chowchilla, had an unbelievable experience. Just great, great people there. Thought I might stay there for the rest of my life because they just treated me so well. And then the Madera job opened, and some people said professionally I should move. I didn't know anything about the Valley. And I didn't, other than I knew Fresno State was great. And I knew Fresno City was a good baseball program because they were good when I was at Kenyatta. But I didn't know if Chowchilla from Bullard, to be honest with you. I didn't know who was better. And once the Madera job opened, I got that job. I was very, very fortunate and did well and beat Bullard for the NYL title, which was back then was crazy. No one did that. And then Coach Bourdet kind of kept an eye on me. And I told him once I'd love to coach at City College and get out of high school. Such a big difference. And I told him I didn't want him to quit or anything happen to him, but I would love to coach. And he came like a year later and he was retiring and told me that I would be his replacement, which was great. And Madera took care of me for 2 years. I had to teach at Madera in the morning and was released. So I'm really fortunate that Coach Bourdet, he kind of picked me because I think not so much because of success, but maybe I was at the right age. And I think I was around 30. There were some real coaching legends in this town. I mean, Merv Carter. I just got done telling Chad you shouldn't ever start mentioning names because you leave someone out. But,
right.
Ken Pappy, Merv Carter, Mike Noakes, just to name a few, Stan Bledsoe, all those guys. It was just, this is a baseball town. And at this point in my life, I didn't feel like I was part of this baseball town, which I feel like now, of course. I was real fortunate because Coach Bourdet kind of handpicked me, and I did 2 years part-time, and he retired, and I got the job, and the rest is history. I've been here 31 years now.
And at Madera, just because, I'm a proud alumni.
Sure.
And you've actually had a lot of players from Madera come through here.
A lot of really good players.
Was it 86 NYL?
86 NYL title.
And that was a Scott Ruckman out of high school.
Ruckman was a really good high school player. He was big too. I think he was like 6'2" and, probably 200 pounds, which was big. And we won the NYL championship because he came up to me 2 days before and goes, "Hey coach, I'll pitch. I don't know. I think it was Saturday, but I'll pitch Saturday if you want. I don't care about my elbow." He had an elbow that everybody worried about, but he had a great slider that nobody could hit. So we had a couple other pitchers at Madera that were really, really good. It was a very talented team for high school. And Ruckman threw. I mean, nobody could hit him. I think we won, I don't even know, 12-2, 12-3. It was a beating. And Ruckman pitched the whole game, never pitched again, couldn't pitch in the playoffs. Then he signed with the Phillies. I know Fresno State offered him. A lot of schools offered him. He was a pro prospect because he went to all the camps back then. And yeah, I would say he was a difference maker for us. But there was a group of 7 or 8 kids that had played together their whole life in Madera, and I was real fortunate to come in there through that time. That championship was a lot of fun.
And then kind of knowing that you're going to take over for Coach Bourdet, and, who knew how long it was going to be, but, I mean, did you feel any pressure, even though knowing this is going to be your job?
Well, the pressure is to give them a reason to hire you full time. So I was getting like a 1 or 2 year audition at that point. And I remember one of the persons that hired me here said, "Well, you'll probably get the job unless someone like Tom Seaver applies." And for those who out there don't know, Seaver went to school here and he was obviously a great baseball player. And my answer to him was, "Why would you hire Tom Seaver over me? I mean, I know he's Tom Seaver, but he's never coached. He's never ordered a dozen balls. He's never ordered uniforms." So I felt I was a better person to hire than Tom Seaver. And I know that sounds arrogant, which the guy told me, that's pretty arrogant of you to say that. I go, "Yeah, it probably is, but, I really feel like I'm ready for this job, even more so than Tom Seaver. And I would want it a lot more than him." So anyway, I ended up getting the job. I never felt a lot of pressure because we won our second year. We won the league championship. We lost to a really good Hancock school my first year. And I remember asking Coach Osborne, who was the coach there, I said, "Are we doing things right or wrong? Can you, what do you think?" And he goes, No, believe me, you're doing it right. And Fresno is a hotbed of baseball talent. So it's just a matter of keeping everybody here and not going to Reedley or COS, but just keeping the local talent here. Because at that time, it was Fresno State and us. And it wasn't Fresno Pacific, and it wasn't all these NAIA schools and schools I've never even heard of, or Division II schools coming in. So we could go out and recruit the players we wanted. And if Fresno State didn't want them, we would get them. So back then, we were loaded every year. I mean, every year. And it's a little different now, but so to answer your question, which you asked me about 25 minutes ago, I can talk. So, never felt a lot of pressure. Had a lot of confidence in myself. Hired Eric Solberg at that time and Scott Buss and Jim Ferguson. And we had some really good Fresno people that were coaches that were from Fresno State. So we had a really good tie and tie to the community. I think once we won the league the second year and I got hired full time, I think it was just a matter of one thing about Fresno City, they don't put any pressure on you. They don't call you in and say, hey, what's it look like there? You need to win 30 games or you're going to be on. There's no pressure from our administration. The pressure is what we put on ourselves as coaches, and we will continue doing that till I retire. But so the internal pressure was there, but not external. There's nobody on me like saying, hey, you got to win, because once I was hired, barring something crazy, it's your job till you really want to leave, I think.
Pretty awesome too, to have, that backing and support. And you mentioned your coaching staff. Can you talk a little bit about that? Just some of the loyalty you've had over the years, and then with Coach Solberg being here from the beginning.
Well, real quickly, Len Bourdet, can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm a little older now. I have to shift every once in a while on the couch. But Len Bourdet has always been there for me. He comes to most home games. When I say most, I mean, if we have 25 home games, he's at 22 of them. He's like a top supporter of ours. And it's not that I lean on him, but I'll ask him at times, hey, what's it look like up there? Because he's coming into the games. He's not coaching our kids, and he's a wealth of knowledge. And he might say something like, hey, I think your shortstop's a little tight on the cover. He's too close to the base, or, maybe he's playing too much in the sixth hole. And, it's things like that being a former catcher, maybe I don't look out there and see things like that from the naked eye. So he's always been good with little tweak things and always honest, so I consider him a good baseball friend. As far as my coaching staff, the first thing I did was hire Eric Solberg, who was at Bullard, and I know with Mike Noakes, who's also on my staff. But Eric was, Bullard was the program. And I mean, they won everything every year, and Eric was the pitching coach. And we developed a friendship when I was at Madera. And, if you know Eric, he's laid back, he's cool, but he's really good with kids, very knowledgeable. Played for Noakes, but he played for Bob Bennett. So he had all these great mentors as far as shaping him as the person he is. So he has the fundamentals from Bob Bennett, and I think he's super. If I had one regret on Eric, it would have been that he didn't become our soccer coach here, because he's great in soccer too. Now he's one of the top programs in the state. But when I had him like just Eric full time and 100%, it was just great. It's still great, but I'm sharing him now. I'm sharing Eric. So Eric's been with me for all 31 years. I have Darren Gameni and Bart Selma, Fresno City guys. It's funny, the only Fresno City guys that aren't on my staff are Eric and I. I went to Miami and he went to Fresno State right out of high school. But everyone else are Fresno City guys, so they have a real fond memory of being coached by Coach Bourdet. And I always say this, but if we could win a state championship, one more, I first of all, I would retire after the last out, but it would be nice for Bart and G, because they really work hard here. They're Rams. They're loyal as the day is long. We're all loyal. We're all best friends. And that's one of the reasons I coach here and not get out is it would be really hard to step away because I'm leaving my best friends. And we do everything together. So not really off the field, but when we show up here, it's just it's a comfort zone. So I've had like Chad's dad, Jim Rothford's worked with me, but Scott Buss has worked with me. Those are Fresno State guys. Kurt Walker helps now. He's a former Fresno State guy, played AAA. He helps Eric in the winter. Todd Meyer helps. Those are pitching guys that help in the fall. So we've kind of absorbed the loss of Eric Solberg in the fall. He still comes over and gives us his expertise late, but we have him full time in the spring. Even though in the seventh inning the phone might ring and he might be recruiting a soccer player out of Rossi or something. But anyway, we have Jamison Smith has helped us with catchers and hitting. Dave Meyer's been on our staff. He's going to be with us this year working with hitting. And when Sam Flores, Sam does it all, really. I mean, it's crazy, but he's the perfect guy we hired. He's into recruiting. He does Stanford camps about 3 weeks of summer, has contact with all these young coaches in the Division 2s and 3s. And, he has really helped place a lot of our kids that, to be honest with you, to schools I've never even heard of, but now I know them because our kids have gone there and done well. Mike Noakes has probably coached with me for like 15 years now. And, Noakes isn't the same Noakes as he was at Bullard. But he's an unbelievable wealth of knowledge, great mentor, fun to be around. He's the luckiest guy I know. He can coach first and not even be looking at a ball of 100 mile an hour go by his head. Somehow he just never gets hit. You know, we always keep an eye on Mike because he's walking around but I love Mike Noakes. So I think he might be back this year. There's rumors he may not be, but I'm hoping I mentioned all the coaches we have. Otherwise I'd feel awful. But, anyway, the staff is what it is. You know, it's, we don't step on each other's toes. Everybody has their own thing. The pitching guys do their thing. Catchers, we do our catching. Outfield do theirs. Hitters, we have one philosophy, but maybe 2 or 3 guys teaching it. So it's not like, you know, someone's going to work with a hitter and then the next guy's going to say, don't forget that. You know, we're all on the same page, very supportive. We don't always get along, which I think is the key to our staff. And, because if I came in and said, hey, here's our starting lineup and everybody agreed, I don't know how good we'd be. But I love it when someone speaks up, like an outfield coach says, hey, I think we should play this guy who's been busting his butt in practice, and I think we should reward him. Okay, good, we'll reward him. So I love it. Or if someone disagrees with my lineup, says, hey, I don't think that guy should bat third, he's in a slump. And I don't always agree with them, but I should for the most part because they're really sharp coaches and they're working with their guys. So for the most part, I'll give in. We'll all kind of give in. And sometimes it'll be 4-3 vote or whatever. But ultimately, the losses, I get credit for the losses. You know, the kids win. Chad knows this. Kids win, coaches lose. So whenever we win a game, the parents are out in the parking lot, you know, patting each other on the back. And whenever we lose, they're going, can you believe he's playing this guy? Or what? Can you believe they bunted? So we support each other. We don't ever leave here and say, oh, yeah, we're playing the wrong guys. You know, Scott screwed up. I told him to play this guy and he didn't. So we're loyal and support each other, which I really believe is the key to our staff. So other than I think we're very player friendly. We work hard. You know, I had a scout local call me and say, you know, I think I saw you guys, you know, using a machine to fungal ground balls. And he goes, he's trying to make fun of me. But, you know, we got that from Stanford. And Stanford, you know, pretty good baseball program. Said, hey, you can use this machine and get 200 balls out in the time you could fungal 75. So we do that every once in a while. But, you know, some scouts think they know it all. But I think we adapt to the young coaching styles. We're not gimmick people. We're kind of old school baseball, play hard. And we practice hard, let the kids play. So, and Chad will tell you that. You know, if a kid makes a mistake in our game, no one yells at him. You know, we might say, you know, shake yourself or something in the dugout, but the kid knows he's made a mistake because he's been coached, and he also knows he's let the players down. So if a guy doubles and goes to third on a ground ball to short, he doesn't need to come in the dugout and a bunch of people yell at him. I mean, he knows he looks stupid. They used to say my bad to me, but I'm not into the words my bad. I already know whose fault it is. And we normally just leave the kid alone. He's had enough. He should be beat up by himself that he made a mistake and let the team down. So obviously we'll mention it to him later, but we're not going to berate a guy. Baseball's a tough sport.
When you got to keep them playing, you know, he's got to get on to the next pitch or
exactly
AB or
he might be your shortstop. And the last thing you want is we just don't yell at kids. You know, at practice we might yell, but we really believe it's a team thing and we coach hard. And I think kids have a blast here and have fun. But boy, I tell you, they want to win more than anybody I know. And there's a tradition at Fresno City that started long before me, obviously with Coach Bourdet. And I've had people tell me when our bus pulls up at Reedley or it pulls up in Visalia that they look over and they see, you know, 35 guys in red jerseys walking to the ballpark. We're different from all the other teams that do that. You can see the teams kind of look at us because we're Fresno City College and we have a target on our back. And by the way, I believe we should win the league every year. So if someone says, well, they win because they have the best talent, I might say, yeah, we might have the best talent. And you still have to coach them. They still have to play together. You still have to do all the things to be a good baseball team. And those are the things that we do. And we're not going to win the league every year because there's other teams in our league. I don't like to talk about them or give them any radio time, but they're going to have good pitching that year. And we only play them 3 times, and the rivalry's great. And they might be just 2 out of 3. And you know, we lost to Porterville 2 years ago. I think they were like 0-800, and we had beaten them like 18-1 and 17-0 that week. And we lost on Friday. And my brother in Munich, Germany, called me the next morning and goes, I know it's a typo, but am I reading this right? You guys lost to Porterville? So Yeah, we did. We lost Porterville. I'm only mentioning them because their coach is a really good guy, Rich Sorensen. He actually apologized on the way home to Porterville. Said, "Hey, man, I am sorry." But, it wasn't a heartbreaker. We lost like 7-3. So, if you don't respect everybody, we fear no one. We kind of say this. We fear no one. We respect everybody, and we really do respect everybody. And that's one of the hardest things at City College is to get kids up for 3 games against a team that you're much better than. And they've circled it all year saying, "Hey, we got these guys." And so to me, the longevity of winning every year and keeping up our tradition has been probably the most satisfying, gratifying.
Talking about, getting off the bus. It's something about coming to Fresno City and just, walking in the coach's office or seeing the names on the wall, seeing the state championships, the facility that it is and the tradition. It's almost like you have something to live up to. And I think as a team, yeah, like you said, we're coached hard in practice and stuff, and you let us play in the games. And I think we were good as teammates to hold each other accountable, where the coach, you didn't have to hold us accountable because you knew I didn't want to let Andy Underwood down. I didn't want to let Tim O'Brien down. I didn't want to let those guys down. I knew if I made a mistake, they're going to pick me up or I'm going to have another opportunity to pick us up again. And, that was one of the reasons why it was such a great time here is, all the friendships I built here, but living up to the tradition, it was actually fun. It was fun getting off the bus and seeing guys. I mean, we saw guys scared. Like there was guys literally scared to face us. There's so many stories I could tell and talk about, but it just, we had a guy that we actually recruited. I won't mention the name, but he actually went to Porterville. And Porterville was actually good when I was here.
Yeah,
they recruited out of the
Puerto Ricans.
International. Yeah.
They didn't speak very good English. They were a good baseball team.
I think I heard about that.
They were good though. But this guy, he was actually from Central, and I remember he was starting that day, and we were just a bunch of us. We just got done taking batting practice, and he was walking by us, and we're like, "Man, you have no shot today." I think it wasn't even a guy that plays. It was probably one of our 50 redshirt players because we were big time then, and he literally, I think, crapped himself that he had to face us. And I don't even think he lasted 2 innings, but that was the reason, we were brothers. We were coached well, but we were taught to hold each other accountable where they didn't have to get on our butt all the time about it. There's a lot of memories, a lot of good memories being here.
Well, I mean, coaching with you and Andy and even Gary Moran, Drozo. There's a lot of great stories. And the one thing that I always, and that was what, 04, 05.
Yeah.
And you guys we'll get into that, how you should have won it that year. You always talk about that. But and I've talked to Jay Pruce in 92?
92.
I've talked to Scott Silva and Zach Taylor and Christian Funk. And I mean, you're talking 25 years.
Yeah.
There's not a guy that I haven't talked to just hasn't loved playing here, or this is the best experience of their lives. And I think that, that attitude of how you let the kids play. I mean, you look at that and then the wins, it makes sense.
Well, just those guys you mentioned, there's so many to mention, but Scotty Silva was a great baseball player here. Should have been player of the year in our conference. Should have been with Gardner, but he was great. Went on to Fresno State. Zach Taylor had one of the best years a kid ever had here. I think part of the reason those guys do well, like Chad was just saying, like when Zach Taylor played for us, all he had to be was just a little number 2 hitter and just bunt and just do what we asked. And he wanted to do that. He completely sold it, and everybody can be themselves. So like Chad was the best player on our team, but if he didn't hit that day, somebody picked him up. So when we recruit guys, we tell them, what you want to have is 9 good hitters in the lineup. So you can get up and do your thing and concentrate on baseball and not have the added pressure that you have to carry our team to win the game. And it's the same thing with the pitching. So if a pitcher doesn't have it, we have someone that does. And that's what everybody kind of feeds off on everybody. But I really think it's key to a player to not have to get up and say, man, we're going to lose. Even last year's team we had 3 or 4 guys that were really, really, really good hitters. And then when we kind of got to the back of our lineup, we weren't nearly as good. So I think those first couple of hitters felt a lot of pressure on them that they had to get something done for us. And I personally don't feel that. I don't like them having to have that kind of pressure.
Do you want to talk a bit about 05?
04 was actually.
Was it 04?
We got screwed really bad.
Yeah, we went to single elimination. It was.
The state was doing these cost-cutting things, so instead of having double elimination, all the playoffs were single elimination, which is incredibly hard to do because you could have one bad day. So the Final Four, there was 4 teams, so the first game you had to win just to play for the championship the next day.
Yeah, so it was. We were number 1 in the North. So it was 1 in the North plays 2 in the South. 1 in the South plays 2 in the North.
Weren't you guys like number 2 in the country though at the time too?
We were pretty good.
1 or 2.
I think it was something like that. You might have been number 1. I don't remember.
We finished 33-7, and I think the best team you ever had was 45-7.
Yeah.
So that's how many games were actually cut from our schedule, But yeah, we played Saddleback and they were good. They were a good team, and Underwood actually started that game. And, for some reason we had some umpires.
We had a pro umpire.
Yeah. And his zone was different. And he was from the South even. And we just felt like he was giving their guy a little more. I mean, their guy, even in the paper the next morning said he was giving him 12 inches off the plate. I mean, he came out and said that, so, we weren't getting the same calls and we lost 4-2 too. It was a close game. And, Cypress was playing, I think, Ohlone or Shasta.
I'm still bitter.
I think it was a green team. But Cypress, they went extra innings and used almost their whole bullpen. So whoever won our game was almost guaranteed they were going to win the state title. And I think Cypress ended up pulling it out in like 13 to 15 innings. And they played before us. So we were just like, oh, this is, we're going to go and do our thing. We got the best pitcher in the state of California on the mound. We have the best offensive lineup. And it wasn't like it's going to be a cake, but we were that cocky. We were cocky with confidence, knowing that we just had that mentality, like we're just going to beat everybody. And, the guy pitched the game that the umpire was giving him and they beat us 4-2. Yeah. Then Saddleback beat Cypress, didn't they? I think. I'm not even sure.
It's like a reoccurring nightmare you're bringing up to me. As you get older, you try to push those things away. But after that game, I remember Bourdet walked up to me and said, you guys, you had a tough one today. That guy was calling pitches sometimes 8 to 12 inches off the plate in big moments. I remember Timmy O'Brien took a call at third with runners on second and third, 1 out, and he came back and said that pitch was 10 inches outside. And the umpire was a pro guy, which I don't know. We don't have pro guys anymore, but in the pros, they don't yell in the dugout. In junior college baseball, both dugouts kind of yell at each other. And after one pitch, he called both coaches out and said, hey, listen, I'm not going to listen to one more word out of the dugout. And I said, I know you're a pro guy, but this is JC baseball. Part of the fun of it is, we're into the games. He goes, you're not into this one. So he had a bad attitude right away. And I try not to ever blame the umpires, but that was really a rough day.
Well, it's already hard enough.
Yeah. Well, when after Doubleday, when he invented the game and the plate was 17 inches, and I mean, it's hard enough for hitters to hit. Like I have the utmost respect for big league hitters because they face 4 different pitchers a game and guys are throwing cutters. Nothing goes straight and they're up there hitting. But everything's relative. So in JC baseball at this point in time, you're up a level and you're facing the best guys in the state. And the pitchers to me have an edge when the plate's 24 inches wide. Most hitters have trouble with the away pitch till they get older because they didn't, in high school, they usually get a pitch to hit every at bat. In junior college, a good pitcher, if he knows you can't hit a pitch away and he's getting a pitch 8 inches off the plate and he keeps hammering it and the hitter up his strength is not going the other way with the pitch or he struggles, it's a mismatch. And, that day there was a lot of mismatches that we were unaware of going into the game. Anyway, it's one of those dark days.
Well, and then to say that you're not getting into this one. I mean, you're a semifinal, man. It's not just a Tuesday night game. It's a big deal. It's emotional. You guys are playing for something. You've worked 3 months and plus the fall, summer workouts. I mean, it's a lot of things that come down to this one game to sit there and tell me that we're not in it. I'm sorry.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I mean, you've been close a few times.
That team was close. We had, I think was it next year with Raleigh and everybody?
Yeah, we fly ball to left.
Yeah, we had a rough deal there. We had a couple rough ones. Like that, we could have won both years.
04,
Chad's
05,
years.
I thought I want to say it was Scotty, Silva, and Funk. And
We were good. You know, Brogdon's in AAA now, but
Yeah.
that's the only game Brogdon lost in 2 years here.
I mean, I thought that year, that was a really good ball club.
We had a bases loaded double over Gardner's head, just over his head. He was probably in a little bit shallow, but that was the game breaker in that game. But, you know, the Final Four is fun. That's why we host it still, because if we get in it, these kids get a chance to play in front of 2,000 people, and we're the game in the town that night. It's part of the reason we still host it. We just want one more. We just want to get there and get there. It's so much fun, but it's hard.
It is.
But I think we've been there. I don't know how many times I've been there. Maybe as a head coach, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 times. And won it once. We were runner-up once. The team that was runner-up, wasn't that good. Riverside went through a steroid area where they won 3 years in a row, and they would hit in batting practice 75 home runs.
He's not.
I'm not exaggerating. Someone said that's the 75th. Yeah. That's the 76th. You know, so they won it.
They had like 20 some guys drafted.
Well, I don't know.
That team.
They were good. That's all I can tell you.
That was 01.
So we just we've had some tough plays go against us, but hey, I don't have any regrets. We got there and we played hard, and kids had the experience of playing in front of a large crowd in the Final Four. And you know, I have a good friend, John Nochi, now that's San Mateo. I see him every summer. I played one summer for him in Canada. He never won a state championship. He was going to win one, and he's one of the legends of JC baseball. And in the bottom of the ninth, they turned a double play, a perfect throw to first, and his first baseman dropped it. And the team was already on the field celebrating. And the next pitch, the guy homered, and he lost. And he said, so I appreciate how hard they are to win. And not everybody around here does, but it's hard. I mean, it's hard to win. Otherwise, we'd have a bunch of them hanging out there.
Sure, you hear I get all the talent, and the guys come here, and it's expected. But I mean, we
don't get it all anymore since you brought it up.
No, well,
but there's a reason that we don't go to the JUCO World Series either.
Yeah, we don't give scholarships. We're the only ones that don't give scholarships. So all the other junior colleges give scholarships. So right away, we're behind the 8 ball.
Right.
And we've asked that maybe the top 2 teams that play for the state championship go into the national championship. But our association and the national associations can't agree, because somebody would have to alter their schedule, because I think theirs is either a week before us or a week after. So, and neither association would budge. So therefore, we're still not playing the national championship. Maybe someday we will, but for California, it's not a big deal, you know. So, and they probably don't want us. So, you know, we really believe we would do really well in the national tournament. And I realize there's other states that have good baseball, but California is really good baseball.
Up and down. I mean, there's really not a bad spot. And I think, 37 wins. That tells you, I mean, you're number 2 all time right now. That just another point that it's hard to do.
Yeah.
And you can win all these games and get, you still things got to go your way sometimes.
Well, even winning league championships, they're hard too. And because you only play 21 games. So if your best player's out for 3, first of all, nobody ever feels sorry for us. So I'll have other coaches walk up and say, "Oh man, we're not strong today. You know, little Johnny and my third baseman got hurt, and my center fielder's out, and this guy's having great trouble." And I'm listening to him, and I really could care less about his problems, because the only ones I care about are mine. And the last thing I do is say, "Yeah, my guy hurt his thigh and he can't play," because no one cares. I mean, the team you have on the field that day, that's the team you're playing, and nobody ever feels sorry for us. The year we won the state, we lost 6. We were 45-7. We lost 6 games in league. We had a 5-game stretch where we had our 3 best players out, and we lost. And so we were, back then I think we played 24 games. So we were probably 18-6, but 45-7 overall. So we had a hard, I think Reedley might have, or I think it was Kings River there. I think they might even have beat us 2 or 3. And that year, it's hard to win league titles because you play 21 games or 24 games, and you stub your toe early, and then you're chasing, and so they're hard to win. The leagues are hard to win, and we respect them. And I remember Coach Bourdet said, "You know, Ron, you talk about state titles a lot. Forget about them. Win your league and then talk about state titles, because winning the league's hard enough in itself." And we still get really pumped up when we win the league, and the coaches hug each other and the players are excited. We don't throw water on people and stuff like that, like I guess in the old days, because I really believe we expect to win it, and I think we should win it. And I was the athletic director here for 10 years. I remember we had a meeting, and I said, I think there should be a year where our school wins every sport. And some of the people looked at me and go, what are you talking about? And I said, no, every sport. We have the biggest draw. And this back then when we weren't losing kids to NAIA schools and D2 schools. And I know we have the most pressure, but we have the biggest draw. We have we're one of the top cities in the state of California. And they all looked at me like kind of crazy, but it was kind of my goal one year to see us win like 21 out of 21 sports. I think we had 16 or something one year, but, so we all respect the league titles. I think some of us expect to win them. If somebody asked me this year, who's going to win the CVC, I would say, well, Fresno City's going to win it. It's going to be a hell of a battle for second, but I'm going to say that every year. So, anyway.
Well, and you talk about, with Porterville and West Hills.
Well, first, before you go, it's hard to go there and win. It is. It's not whether their teams are good or bad. I mean, we went one year to West Hills and it was blowing like 50 miles an hour in. Like we actually did pop up priority for in and out.
For the game.
I mean, it's not easy to go to those places and win, even though we should. I mean, and we expect it to, but it's tough.
It was so windy one day, I thought I saw Toto and Annie M fly by from The Wizard of Oz. And all of a sudden, you're out there playing in that game, and they used to send the worst umpires. And if they're listening right now, it's fine because they were the worst. And they'd miss a backside double play call at first, and the guy's out, and we turn a double play, and he'd call him safe, and they'd end up scoring 3 runs. And I'd go out there and say, how can you miss that call? And they'd look at me and say, Ron, it's West Hills. But now we're down 3-0, Toto and Annie M, windy day. It's a completely different day. And like Chad said, our kids are driving over there thinking we're going to win 18-0. 3-4 years ago, Michael Beltran asked me before the game, is there a 10-run rule today, Coach? And I said, Mike, respect everybody, fear no one. And before you knew it, we were down 8-0 in the 5th. And I said, I remember on the mound, I looked at Beltran, I said, I'll let you know if there's a 10-run rule. And but that's why you have to respect everybody. But like Chad said, they're hard to win. And for some reason, I think they're harder for us. And like I'll go watch COS. We'll go scout COS and Merced, rivals in our league, good teams. And we go down there, and it might even be the league opener. Both teams are sitting on the bench, and they're just playing the game. It's like a beer league softball game. And we'll go down there, and no matter who we play, and they're on the rail, they're on our ass, and it's like their coach said, "Hey, let's get up. This is the week. This is the week we find out who we are and how good we are. We're playing Fresno City, and they're up for every pitch." And obviously we're up, but we're trying to get up for 9 straight games. And as an athlete, good athletes get up all the time. But I think Lou Holtz said it once when he coached at Notre Dame. He goes, I think I have to get the team up 3 times out of 10. And then the players need to get themselves up 3 or 4 times. And then we need to win the other 3 games just by our ability. And I think I wouldn't want to coach at those other schools because I love Fresno City, but I would think it's a lot easier to get kids up 6 times out of 24 games than it is 24 out of 24.
Right. And I was going to say about West Hills and Porterville, it just means when you get to COS and you get to Merced, and Reedley's done pretty well recently, it means just even more at that point, because some of those guys are thinking the same thing. There's 6 wins for us. So when COS and Fresno City go at it, it's a grind. You're playing for your titles. It's
a grind when you're 1 game behind somebody in first, and they're going to West Hills, and we're playing Taft.
Right.
Taft's good. I mean, Taft last year was very, very good. They beat us in the league opener, kind of beat us like a drum, kind of. They actually yelled at us a little bit, hurt our feelings. But fortunately they yelled at us. And then we went back and had to go back-to-back days because of rain, and we beat them pretty good. So we beat them 2 out of 3, but they didn't lose again in the league for like 15 games. But if we would have lost 2 out of 3 to them and been 1 behind, we would have chased that team for 15, 16 games and puts even more pressure. So when you're playing one of those teams and one of the teams you're chasing is playing a team that's going to win 3, you always check the scores anyway because you always want that little miracle. Like I said, I don't take winning the league titles for granted. They're tough to win.
You talk about last season, and the history of this program. You've had, Chad and a bunch of guys, Andy, Underwood and Gary, numerous draft picks, guys get to the big leagues. And this last year you had Chet Allison, get drafted in Alec Gamboa. Can you say anything about those guys? And obviously it never gets old.
No, it doesn't get old. speaking of Chad, Chad went to Oklahoma State, did a great job. So our players help each other out everywhere. And Oklahoma State called this year, and they call every year. They said, hey, I need a left-handed hitter. This is when Funk played for us. And it was Robbie Walton. And Robbie goes, hey, I need a left-hand hitter. Do you have one? I go, shit, yeah, I got a great one, Christian Funk. He goes, I'll be out there tomorrow afternoon at noon. And they watched him hit. And he left and flew back to Stillwater and said, we're going to give him a scholarship. And so it's because of how Chad did there and our reputation, I really believe we never send a bad kid somewhere and where it closes the door at that school. But because of like Chad's success, it worked for Funk. And Christian went back there, graduated, had 2 good years. He went to the championships. I think he was 1 win away this year from the World Series.
Supers at Texas Tech.
So everybody kind of helps everybody. And Jackson Glines went to Michigan, and he calls me every year. He goes, Ron, you got another Glines for me? And like this year I did. It was Chet, but we don't always have another Glines. We don't always have another Chad. But when they call and you say no for 3 years, then all of a sudden you say, yeah, they're on them because they trust us. But this year, Gamboa, Gamboa from Madera, yep. One of my favorite kids I've ever coached in my life. And we got him under some weird circumstances. He had some academic problems at State. He had arm issues. So he didn't have a great experience over there, but they recruited him, gave him a good scholarship because they believed in him. And things didn't work out, mostly on his part. And by the way things happened, he ended up with us. And first game he pitched, I think he struck out 7 out of 8. Took him out of the game and said his arm bothered him. We sent him down to Job because we felt he was that good. And I remember he texted me, he goes, I'm sitting next to Kobe Bryant in the waiting room. And I text back, I go, I bet Kobe goes in before you. But so he had Tommy John surgery, and he came back, and this past year, and Eric did a great job with him. I mean, Eric, we had coaches saying, let's get him on the mound, man. He's ready. He threw bullpens. His first time he could throw from Little League distance, 45 feet. First time he was cleared to throw 45 feet, I went down and watched him, and he would have thrown like 7 straight perfect games at Williamsport. He looked like he's throwing 120 miles per hour. But anyway, we knew we were going to get this kid. And Eric kept him on his program and 50 pitches here and 50 pitches here and then 65. But anyway, he was the best center fielder we had. So he'd come out to practice. He wasn't one of those pitchers, and no offense to the pitchers, but after they throw their bullpen and do their drills, they're kind of like cattle. They just kind of graze out there, and they don't really want to shag, and they're bored, but not Gamboa. Gamboa put his long outfielder's glove on. He made plays in the outfield that no one else could make. Filthy dirty, diving for balls, and then, Eric would come over and say, hey, you see Gamboa, what he's doing out there? And I go, I know best Gamboa, but we didn't want to lose him and diving for a ball. But he goes, I think that's ridiculous. Well, it is. And I would tell Gamboa, hey, don't dive anymore. And then 15 minutes later, he made the play of the week. ESPN diving for the ball in right center. He goes, I'm sorry, I know I shouldn't dive. But he was so much fun and so much fun to watch. And, he was really, really good. I think he was pitcher of the year in our league, but he only really pitched during league. Beat Aloni in the playoffs, really good team, better than we were. Really, really good team, hitting team. We ran right through them. And was a prospect, and the Dodgers signed him. And in the 8th round, they gave him money that wasn't 8th round money, but they really, really, really wanted him, and he's done well. And he texted me the other night. He's 94, throwing 94 now. So, but he was a little bit down because they'd hit him. His first text was, "Go, hey coach, Porterville. There's no Portervilles here," and because he didn't strike anybody out the first game, and he only pitched 1 inning. So then he got beat up a little bit the other day. I text back. I go, please remember who you are. You're Alex Gamboa. You're a special kid, special pitcher. You're throwing 94 miles an hour. Don't get caught up that they scored a run off you. And, cause that's what I would say here to him. And he texts me back and goes, thanks coach. Cause I've been beating myself up all morning. But anyway, I love that kid. I'd love to see him make it. And then Chet Allison, we felt, we're lucky we got him. I told his parents that we're lucky. He was a great player at Clovis. Buchanan has everybody sign scholarships, even the announcers, the people that worked in concession stand. Everybody gets a scholarship at Buchanan. And here's who I felt was the best player in the league. And no, he didn't get one. And when he got over here, he was just a prospect right away and had all the tools. and had a great fall. I think he had 5-6 home runs in the fall out of 10 games, and didn't have a great spring. But the scouts were kind of on him. He just didn't have a great spring. And last year he developed. I mean, last year he was the same guy, but he worked his butt off, and things started happening. He got a lot of confidence, and he was Chet Allison, and he was great. I mean, he was runner-up player of the state, and had a great. I called Arkansas. Like Courtney, my daughter, coached at Arkansas, and the baseball coach goes, how come your dad never calls me, Courtney, and as a player? And Courtney goes, well, it's because he doesn't have a player that can play at Arkansas. So he goes, so I called this year and said, hey, I finally have a guy that can play. And they flew out here and watched him hit and gave him a really good scholarship. And Chet went back there. They play in front of 10,000 every night.
Right.
So Chet's mom said, he has a scholarship to San Jose State. That's really close to home. I think we're leaning that way. But we're going to make the trip, to Fayetteville. So they went out there, and Chet came back and absolutely loved it. It was just, I've been back there. It's unbelievable. And I said, Chet, you owe it to yourself to go back there and see what it's like. His mom came back and said, it's amazing how close Fayetteville is to Clovis when you really think about it. And the dad said, we'd move there if we didn't have other kids. They love the city, which I love it too. But anyway, Chet, at the last day you could sign with the Dodgers. Got a great offer, good money, first 10-round money. They're going to pay for his college. Arkansas is very disappointed, but at schools like Arkansas, they lose people like that. They're going after the Chet Allisons, knowing they may lose them. And so I was disappointed because I have 2 grandsons there, and they would have been going to the games, and Chet, would have, acted like a big brother and signed autographs, and it would have been a great experience for, especially my oldest grandson, who's 4. He's just a couple steps away from the big leagues. He's 4, but he's fundamentally sound. He's fundamentally sound from the left side. But anyway, so Chet, I can't say enough about Chet. He was best player in the league by far. One of the best players in the state. We let him off. No, I don't even remember what we did with him. We let him off for a while, batted third. We had Ian Ross bat behind. We had tried to have somebody protect him because he was so good, and Ian did a great job, of course. But Chet was one of those special players. You probably have about 10 of them in my years here. He was one of them. Chet, another one, obviously.
Well, I appreciate that, and I developed a lot here too. We talked about redshirting my freshman year. The first game of the year, I hit a walk-off homer and a pinch hit, and then I sat for the next 10 games, and I was like, what's going on? But I was developing, and I finally got my shot. But yeah, good for Chet. I'm happy for him, and being in the Midwest and getting to play at Arkansas, it would have been nice to see him go there and see what he could have done. But the pro prospect and Dodgers, they got a good one. But for you, I mean, you have 2 daughters, both national champion softball players.
Yep.
Amanda Scott, Fresno State pitcher, and then Courtney went to Cal and she was a catcher. Just give us a background, your daughters growing up and
then
where they
follow your footsteps and both become coaches.
It's kind of crazy because, parents that are piano players, their kids grow up to be piano players, or things like that. So my girls were always with me at the ballpark. So I coached T-ball, coached their softball leagues, they were really fundamentally sound. They loved the game. They would hang out with the guys. I remember at Madera, they'd come down and take BP, and they were just really good. And we got real lucky. We moved to Clovis, and Dave Bowie, Bob Wigginton, Jim Maxey, they had this Fresno Force softball team, and their daughters were great. Dave's daughter went to Cal. Bob's daughter caught at Stanford. Kara Maxey went to, I think, Oregon State. Jamie all these girls got scholarships out here. Kate on, they went to Michigan, and it's really because of those 3 guys. They started this softball team that organization still goes now. So my girls were lucky. They got into, they played in Madera. They were in Chowchilla. They were better. It's hard to say this, but they were really good. So their T-ball team won the league championship I was coaching. So I taught all these kids that, hey, you have to hit the ball out in front. So I put the tee out in front and taught them how to hit the left and how to hit the right and how to hit the center. And the other coaches, bless their heart, one guy owned a radiator shop and the other guy was an editor for the newspaper. So they weren't learning like my kids were. Like if we were trying to print papers, the guy that ran the editor shop, he would have won the league because I don't know anything about printing. I also had Rip Rogers on my team who got drafted out of here. So it's kind of like when you have young kids playing soccer, it's kind of like cluster ball. There's 22 kids around a ball and it pops out and the whole pile moves over here. And There's nobody's like soccer. So I remember in T-ball, they would walk up and Rip Rogers would bat first, and he would look over at me and say, Ron, there's nobody in right field. Should I hit a home run to right? And I would go, yeah, that's good. And he would shift his body and line a ball to right field, and everybody in the field would run to it. And then he'd get a homer. And then Courtney would come up and go, should I hit it to left? And because the pile is now in right. And then Courtney would hit one to left. And, but everyone through the lineup would hit and even the umpire didn't know much. He'd pick the plate up, the tee, and put it on top of the plate. And I said, no, the tee's, or I'd move my girls back and he would move the girls up so the tee was right in front of him. I said, just let him hit. So finally, people started yelling at me in the town, like poor sportsmanship, and then anyways, jokes. So I've coached my girls forever. I ended up giving a clinic to the T-ball parents and said, this is really how you hit off a tee. But so my girls have been learning those fundamentals from way young. And I noticed a lot of other parents that former players of mine, kids are playing and their kids are tearing it up, because they're getting coached how to play baseball. And so my girls loved baseball. They were good in softball. They were good high school players. I think they won the Valley a couple of times out of Clovis. Amanda got a scholarship to Fresno State, and they won a national championship. Courtney went to Cal, I think just to get out of Mandy's footsteps a little bit. And Cal really recruited her hard. So did Stanford. So did Fresno State. But not hard like Mandy. They just sent her a packet, told her to sign for a national letter of intent. And I think Courtney wanted a phone call, maybe. They just figured she was going there. So Courtney won national championship, and I think Mandy was 98 and Courtney was 2001. And it was kind of interesting. Mandy's last game was at Fresno State, and Cal beat him to go to the World Series. So really was hard because both girls, whoever won, went to the College World Series. And it was kind of interesting because Courtney was going to hit off Amanda that night. And she asked if I would help her with her hitting. So it was during the Final Four. So Courtney came over in the cages, and people would walk up and say, how can you help Courtney? Because she's facing Mandy tonight. I go, I know, but Courtney reached out to me. Mandy would never call and say, hey, Dad, will you help me teach a drop or how? Because Mandy was pitching. But it was funny. I told Courtney, what do you think Mandy's going to throw you first pitch? She goes, probably a changeup, or at least a second pitch, because Courtney had trouble hitting the changeup. I said, yeah, she probably will. And the second pitch of the game to Courtney was a changeup, and she rifled a double to left center. I felt a lot of pride, but I felt bad. But anyway, so back in those days, if Mandy would have called and said, let's talk about hitting, even though Margie would get mad if anybody talked to her girls. So that was one of my hardest days as a father, watching that happen. And when Mandy lost, they lost kind of bad. I don't know, it was 7-2 or something like that. 5-1 or some softball, 3-1's like 10-0. But that was a tough day. But it's funny. So Courtney graduated from Cal. Mandy was number one draft pick in the pro leagues for 2 or 3 years. She never even returned the calls because I think the bonus was $2,500 or something. They called me once to go, Ron, your daughter's Amanda, right? And I go, yeah. She hasn't returned our calls. I said, I know, but I mean, what are you going to offer? She goes, well, we're going to offer maybe $2,500. So she gets to go to New York and pay for apartments and everything, and you're going to give her $2,500. I mean, I have baseball players that went in the 30th round that are going to get, $15,000. So I don't know how that league makes it, but it's still going, the pro league. But so when Mandy got done, she was done. But when Courtney got done at Cal, I remember she told me, hey, I'm done. Thank God, no more softball. It's out of my life. And then Courtney Dale called her she played at Bullard and UCLA, said, hey, why don't you come catch in Japan? So they paid those girls like $90,000 for 3 months. So Courtney went to Japan for 3 years and caught just for 3 months and made more money than most of the players that played for me. Almost all the players. And then University of Oklahoma had a graduate assistant job, and Courtney took it. And they won a couple of national titles there. And then all of a sudden she got her degree, her master's. So she had to leave Oklahoma, and she was head coach at Maryland. In a 5-year span, she was coaching at Louisville, head coach at Maryland, and then head coach at Arkansas. Had 2 babies. Just, it's crazy what they went through for 5 years. So she was offered the Oregon job this past summer and turned it down because she loves Arkansas. She'll be mad when I say this, makes more money than Mandy and I combined. So I was back there this week. We made her buy dinner. But I'm really proud of both girls. Amanda's the head coach at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. And she was coach of the year in a 14-team conference last year. And they lost the championship game of a regional going to the Division II World Series. Courtney's done a great job at Arkansas. I mean, just a great job. And they had their first regional ever, biggest crowds they've ever had in Arkansas history. And they love Courtney there, and she's got a great staff. And anyway, so I'm proud as I could be of my daughters. They were great athletes, but man, they're great persons, and they're both coaching, which is crazy.
Yeah, I don't think we could talk to you and not bring them up. I mean, I remember watching them as players, as a kid. Even them to follow and coach is, have them both doing it.
Yeah.
Kind of different.
And successful.
Right, yeah, not
just doing it. They're successful.
And not to say because dad's a coach, they coach, but they still had a passion for their sport.
But they got that from,
sure,
coach.
I mean, to be able to do it at the level they're doing it at and having success is pretty impressive.
Yeah, they've been good. I'm proud of them.
I was her catch partner when she'd come back when I was here in 2004. So when she'd come back and need somebody, I'd always play catch with her. But I follow her on, social media, and she's done so good. Arkansas is legit program, now that she's been there and what they've done. But yeah,
it's SEC, man. You can't really.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Every time you get off the plane, I normally say us, every time we get off the bus, there's someone waiting for us, but when you're big time, it's every time you get off the plane. But real quick story on Mandy. I know people will probably turn off the radio or whatever because I'm still talking, but so I never made my kids take batting practice or ask them to do anything. But I had to deal with them. If you want me to do something, I'll do it. So they would want to go hit, even when the 49ers might be on Sunday, and they say, "Can we go hit?" And of course, I had a machine, and so we'd go set up at whatever school we were near, and they'd hit. But so we were over at Christmas at my mom's house in Carmel, or Thanksgiving, I don't know, but my brother was in from Germany, and he hadn't seen Mandy pitch probably in a long time, and Mandy walked over and said, "Dad, will you catch me at the school? I just want to throw like 30 pitches." And my brother, who was 3 or 4 beers and some wine in, said, "Hell, Mandy, I'll catch you." And my brother was in flip-flops, and I said, "Gary, I don't think I ought to catch her." He goes, how hard could it be? So I remember I went over there. First drop ball went off his big toe and just split it. And I still laugh to this day. And he threw me the glove. I don't know if it was because he'd been drinking or because he wasn't ready for that drop ball, but she went from like a little 7th grader, flipping it to, sophomore in college, and he hadn't seen her. And I still laugh to this day, but yeah, that's a story. I don't even know why I shared it, but I thought I would.
We'll take them. Any story's good. 32nd season we're getting into. Any specific moments that you can remember or something that you're most proud of, whether it be putting guys into, 4-year schools or drafts or championships or
obviously one of the great ones was the state championship, but we've had some walk-off to get to the state title that seemed like almost as fun. Getting the state championship's really, really hard. So when you win that, I mean, that's it. I mean, you're excited and people are dumping water and you're hugging around and stuff like that. And because you've achieved that ultimate goal to get there. And I'd say the times we won to go to the Final Four, every one of the times, all 6, 7 times, I can remember them, getting a call or a text from a guy that's going to the big leagues. I remember Sean Halton, he has a saying with me saying, "You got to love it, Coach." And I got a text in the middle of the morning saying, "Coach, got to love it, playing in Milwaukee tonight." So he was going to the big leagues, and I text my girls right away. And Mandy was living in Chicago. She goes, "Hey, if I leave now, I can get there." So she drove to where Sean played. And Sean really didn't even know Amanda, but she got there in time, and his first hit might have been like a flare or a bouncer over the mound or something. But she was there. But I think seeing kids do well in college, but the kids that go to the big leagues, winning, just there's so many things to be gratified for. My whole coaching career started. I saw one of your questions here, like who my mentors are. I came from a divorced family, so we moved every year when I was like in 7th grade. And when I was in 8th grade, I played at school at St. Joseph's, all boys school. I was new guy in school, and I could hit a fastball because no one really could spin one yet. I had a little trouble with the ones that spun. So anyway, so they had the local Babe Ruth tryouts, and this guy named Joe McMonagle was playing at Bellarmine High School, and he walked over to me at the tryouts and go, "Hey, I'd like you to play in our team, but I want you to take this glove and do all the tryouts left-handed." And believe it or not, that moment is one of the reasons I'm coaching here. So I said, "Why?" He goes, "Just do it." And then one of my good friends was on this team called Prus Pharmacy and goes, "Hey, we want you on the team, so act like you're left-handed." So, I swung and missed, I think 9 times in a row, ran into one left-handed, and then threw from right field. They had me go out to right field, and I couldn't throw. I'd never thrown left-handed, so I had the worst arm of all the kids trying out. And then they drafted me in the first round, and all the coaches go, "What are you doing, man? We thought he was the worst guy out there." They said, "Yeah, I promised his mom, I'd draft him." They said, "I know, but why don't you draft someone else? We'll just give you him." So anyway, he went to Bellarmine High, and then, so I ended up playing on that team, and we were great. I caught, so I went to Bellarmine High School. He told me to go there, and it's an all-men's school at that time. I went out for the freshman team, took a train there, because that's what you did. Train was Menlo Park to San Jose. And I got out, went to tryouts. There was like 100 kids out there. I didn't know any of them really. And it rained for a week. So he posted the freshman team line. The next week, he goes, "Here's the freshman team." So it was 18 kids. I didn't make it. So I couldn't understand why he didn't have any more tryouts. But this rest of you guys that tried out, thank you for trying out. So I went over and told Joe, who was playing the senior outfielder on Joe McMonagle on the varsity team. I said, "Joe, I got cut." He goes, "No way." I said, "No, I got cut." And he goes, "Here's what you do. Just go out to JV practice today and say you were sent up here." I said, "Are you sure?" And he goes, "Yeah, do it." So I walked up to Brother Ryan, who was the JV coach at Bellarmine, and said, "Hi, Coach. My name's Ron Scott. I got sent up here today." And he goes, "Great, great." So I caught every game for the JVs that year. If I didn't know Joe McMonagle, I don't know where I'd be. I wouldn't, if I didn't go tell him I got cut, I wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? So different things happen in your life. And then I loved the way he coached me in Babe Ruth. He was a hard ass guy, senior in high school, was relentless on me, just taught me discipline. And then I went to a junior college, and the guy taught me everything, taught me how to run a practice. He's the guy that got me to Miami. So those two guys were real mentors to me in my life. Frazier at Miami was a guy that was just, he liked to raise money. Our assistant coaches did all the coaching. Frazier would come to practice, 5-6 times a month. He came one day and goes, "Hey, if number 3 wins at the Biscayne Medals today, dog races, if number 3 wins, we'll fly to Gainesville instead of taking a bus. And if you have a good practice, we'll let you out before the final race." So we had a great practice, of course. We had the speaker on the races, dog races on the stadium intercom. And he goes, "Okay, that's it." So we all got in our cars and we hauled ass to Biscayne, bought whatever it was, probably $1 to get in. And we were at the finish line, and our dog came in first. And, there was like 20 Miami Hurricanes devil fisting. So he did stuff like that, which we still don't know. Obviously, he knew something. But so he was a good guy. I mean, he's helped me with my fundraising ideas. And so I was real fortunate to have those people.
Obviously, your 1,037 wins. The number one's 1,072. You want to beat, you will get that. Is that, cause everybody asks, retire. What's your plan?
How much longer?
Yeah.
My favorite question is not how you doing or how are the girls?
It's how much
how's your
longer
golf game? How much longer? When's it over? That kind of stuff. So, barring health, we're going to pass that guy. We want to do it as a staff. A lot of coaches are going to give you the thing, well, I'm not really into wins and records and stuff like that. And I'm going to tell you that I'm really not. But I'm more into, if we won a state title this year, I'd get out, even if we didn't get the record, because I'd love to go out on top, and I'd love it for our coaches and obviously our players. But the record will be great. But it's, what that is longevity and great players, of course, and great coaches and great administrative support and all those intangibles that people say that you think are just sayings. They're really not. They're true. So I wouldn't be here without all those things. And one more year. Hopefully we get it, the record this year, and about 2,000 applications will come in for the job.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun search.
It's a good one.
I mean, you've got guys everywhere, even local, just around here.
I hope a local guy gets it. If I have anything to say, that's somebody will.
It's been great, Coach.
Love it.
I'm glad that we got you on here. Sorry we hit you 8th in the lineup, but
yeah. I don't think I really even want to know who the first 7 are.
I can tell you.
No, I don't need to know. But this is a baseball town, and what you guys are doing is great. I love it that you're doing it, because we need something like this. And I finally feel like I'm part of the baseball town, and I'm not feeling sorry for myself. But I came from the outside, and it's a Fresno State town, and I wasn't a Fresno State guy, and so getting some of these awards that when you get really old, you can start getting stuff like Al Radka, like I got the Al Radko Award this year. I wasn't even sure really what it was, but I started reading it, and I realized that they probably had a meeting saying, hey, we better get Ron in there before he dies. He's been coaching 100 years over there at City. But as you start getting recognized in town by the baseball people, the Bob Bennett's, the Mike Repsich, obviously Pete Biden before he passed away, the Tom Summers, here I go again, leaving people out. But just getting recognized and being part of it is really, really gratifying because I was an outsider for a long time. And I love Fresno. I love Fresno City. I love what you guys are doing. I think it's great for our community.
No, we appreciate it.
I want to go out there and say, if you have the opportunity, if you think you're a Division I baseball player and you don't have a Division I scholarship, go to Fresno City College or a junior college, whatever you feel like.
No, you were right. Fresno City College.
Go to Fresno City. That Division II, that NAI scholarship, that's always going to be there. But if you want to be a Division I baseball player and that's not there yet, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go to a 2-year school. People don't know. You get drafted as a freshman or sophomore. You go to, a D2 NAI or Division I, you have to wait 3 years to get drafted. You have more opportunities. So I think when people throw scholarships at you, don't always look at it that way. Just like we've been talking about all these episodes is what's the best fit. Sometimes Fresno City Junior College, that is the best fit. It was the best fit for me. And I am proud that I picked that decision and I came here because like you said, all my teammates and everything, it was 2 of the best years that I've ever had playing baseball. And, I don't regret it one bit. And I feel like there's a lot of guys out there that, this is a better fit. They're just not choosing it. And it needs to be on the list, I want to get that out there is don't be afraid to go to a junior college.
I think it goes beyond baseball too. I mean, you look at the, if baseball's an aspiration that you have to, like you said, to continue, the academic side and the cost that you're going to save by going JUCO route is pretty substantial too. So
yeah, and it opens up more doors.
Well, Coach, episode 8, that's
all right. I batted 8th late.
All right, guys, that's episode 8, and this is the Hit or Die podcast.
Hit or Die.
You can stream the Hit or Die podcast on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. The show is also available on YouTube. For news and updates about the show or to get involved, check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Hit or Die Podcast.